Okay. Uh, Hello. So we kind of noticed that the experience of finding, getting, and even completing an internship is a little different than what it seems like on the college website. Um, and actually,
And I might be lacking in the students' input as well about how the
yes,
internships can be acquired or the process of doing them themselves.
yeah. So after discussion with some of the advisors in the program, they have shared that like ideally we would learn this stuff in 601. But sometimes that doesn't cover the details. And especially from a student perspective, that's very different from a professor's perspective. The professors are invaluable resources, but having information from your peers is a very valuable resource that's very different.
Mhm.
Um,
We have some predetermined questions already set up, but
yeah. To start, I just would like to do a little introduction. We have our e-board members and our advisor, Dr. Cofield, in the audience here.
in the
Um,
panoramic audience, if you see at the top.
yes. Uh, so my name is Oliver. I'm the president of Scala. So I have completed my internship. I conducted my internship over the summer. I was an intern at the library, the Philip Capozzi MD Library with the New York Medical College. I was working on a joint project between the archives and the user experience librarians. And it was a really interesting experience because the two offices were doing very different things, but they gave me opportunities to work very closely with both. Um, yeah, and I do think I have some interesting insight in my experience because it's a rather niche field.
Hi, and I'm Misha. I'm the secretary for SCALA. And I'm in the process of completing my internship right now, but I also was doing it over the summer and all last semester. I work for the New York Library Association, which is based in Finland right here. So that's not too far from here in Albany. And technically, the project that I'm working on is our conference, the annual conference that we're doing in early November up in Saratoga Springs. We're going to have something like 1,000 people attending, and that's going to be it's not necessarily that I'm working directly in a library per se, but I'm working with the Library Association, which I have their website pulled up right here on my computer actually. But some of the main things that they do is the networking features for librarians and library professionals, as well as advocating on behalf of librarians in legislation and stuff like that.
Um, right.
Yeah.
So one thing I would kind of like to start with is because I know that some people here have not finished an internship, have not like started looking, which is like it's fair. We're all very busy, and so oftentimes people don't look right away, and that's fine. It is a good idea to start looking pretty soon
Yes.
because internships, it turns out, can be a little bit harder to find, especially depending on where you're located.
Mm.
In areas like Albany, there do seem to be a lot of opportunities, which we're very grateful for. And I do think that is particularly because we have an ALA accredited program right here.
Yes.
So there are so many places that want to work with us on that. Um, Another thing I will say is that in an internship, you are expected to have one large project that you're working on. Working on other projects too, totally acceptable, great ways to get experience. But formally, for the academic requirements, you are to have one main project. This is particularly why I reference the project that I was working on in my own internship, because that is rather important to note.
At least for my internship advisor, Dr. Germain, she has it set up, and I assume most of them are like this, where you have to log your hours as you're working along the way of doing your project, as well as at the end you're doing like kind of a capstone paper where you're talking about what you did, why it was important, why it's important to you in the MSIS program. So I would assume most of the advisors that you have for those, for the, like the 678 sections, are going to have you do some kind of write up on your project to, just to show that you actually did it.
I will say, so I did mine over the summer, was the only course I was doing, nothing else. So I didn't think to look at Brightspace. And I found out during the last week of my internship that I had all of these, like I say, all of these assignments. It's like you make logs of what you're doing, little
Mhm.
descriptions that if you're doing it along the way, not bad at all.
Yeah.
When you have to do it all in a few days, thankfully I had kept thorough notes on what I was doing anyway, so
Nice.
that facilitated that process. But
I
look at
recommend I
Brightspace.
recommend doing that along the way if you can. Please save yourself the trouble. It's also a good habit to get into, and I'm saying this because of what I do at my internship, which is kind of a lot of customer service kind of things. Some of the things that you have to do when you're in any kind of profession, whether you're going into librarianship or if you're going into some other information professional field, you're probably at some point going to be required to keep logs of what you're doing for your job performance. And this is one way to kind of get into that habit. It's really important you do that, I think.
Um, so the first question that I have written down, how did you find your current internship? Would you like to start or would you like me to start?
I'm pointing to Melody, who is in the audience, who forwarded the information to me that she received about like the New York Library Association was looking for an intern, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try my hand and throw my hat in the ring. For context, so this was, I want to say a year ago now. So right now it's like mid-December. Sorry, not mid-December. What? It's mid-October. It's mid-October. It was around that same time last year. I was in the process of finishing my first semester in the MSIS program. And I was looking everywhere I could for an internship, and I was trying to find one that was paid because I'll be really honest, I was struggling pretty bad financially. Like I was trying to get food stamps and stuff like that. So it was pretty difficult. Um, and I think I'm always thankful to Melody for giving me that opportunity. But for me, it was like having networking resources, knowing people in the area who also were connected to other people, because I was getting applications put in for places through, is it Handshake that
Yeah,
UAlbany uses?
that's the
Yeah.
job board that UAlbany
I was
uses.
mainly looking there, and I was looking, there was a graduate assistantship position that I interviewed for, and there was a position at another local college that they needed someone to do like a temporary role, and I was like, I guess I could try and do that for my internship. Um, which both of these were good opportunities. But the Nyla one was the one that I ended up getting, and the interview was, it was like a job interview, really. But yeah, for me, it was having a networking opportunity, knowing people from my classes who could show me stuff, and not necessarily what I thought was going to be where I was going to get it, which was on Handshake.
Um, so the short answer is that the I think it's the CHC department sends out weekly email blasts, and there
Mhm.
was a weekly Wednesday internship roundup, I believe is what it's called.
Yes.
And the particular internship that I got was listed there. That's the short answer. The long answer is that I did a cold call to the library because I'm hoping to go into health sciences librarianship, which is a rather niche field. So I started reaching out to different libraries to do cold calls just to ask the librarians, what's your experience like working there? What are some things that helped you? And informational interviews, never actually asking to have an internship. I was doing this because I genuinely wanted information.
Mm.
But doing so, particularly with the New York Medical College, I had a chance to speak to I think it was like three-fourths of the particular department I wound up working with because they arranged it at a time when people could drop in and out of Zoom as they had time. And so I spoke to them. I made it clear like what I'm struggling with, and I asked specifically, I have to have an internship. What is some advice that you can help with? Because I don't like there weren't a lot of listings really
Mhm.
for this kind of thing. The only formal listing, other than this one that I found, was with the library for the medical school associated with Columbia. And when I called for more information, they said that they had actually suspended the internship and they hadn't updated the website yet. Um, so in this process, I asked, like, I was just asking for information. I wasn't flat out saying, "Hey, I want an internship." But they did actually give me some advice about cold calling for internships as well. Uh, um,
And one of the other things too is that both of us are in the library services track
yes,
at UAlbany. So obviously our information might be quite biased in that regard. If you are in data analytics or you're in the archives track, we might not necessarily have the same information. But I think one of the overall things you could take away from at least where we found this is think outside the box of where you might get an internship or where an internship that could apply to your degree, like what could be necessary. Because like if you are, let's say, like me, if you were someone who's like, I want to intern at a library, that's the only place I can go. Well, a library association is also a place you can go, or just anything that you can argue is helpful towards your degree and not necessarily what like a public library or something. Like it could be like a medical library, or it could be a law library, or it could be anything that is not what you traditionally think of. Think just
records departments in government organizations
mhm.
are actually a really interesting option for people who are willing to explore that.
There's a lot of that up here in Albany specifically.
Before I began the program, before I applied, I did a lot of Googling about how viable is a career in libraries. Is this something I can actually get a job in? Um, and the one thing I found over and over again is there are jobs available. You just have to be willing to look at places other than public libraries.
And you have to be that, and also you have to be willing to like if you have an end goal in mind, that's like, I don't know. I'll use myself as the example. If your end goal is you want to work in an academic library and there isn't an opportunity right away, you shouldn't just be like, well, I'm just gonna wait until that opportunity comes. You should be practical and think, well, here's something that I could work for. I could do cataloging at this library, or I could help them with reference services at this library and work myself up to put that on my resume, and that involves internships too, because a lot of people, I think, uh, they probably want the paid internship, which is the kind of the
Yeah.
highest point that you can, the gold standard, let's say. But experience is still really good no matter what.
And a lot of internships can be adapted.
Mhm.
So my internship, as I mentioned, my primary project was with the archives. However, because I was working closely with the user experience librarians, they gave me a lot of opportunities. They made sure anytime they had a research consultation that I was on that call. I was even able to, in small ways, contribute through asking questions because over the summer in medical schools is when every medical student under the sun is conducting a systematic literature review so that they can try to get published and put it on their resume.
Mhm.
So that's a very busy season for research consultations, which is a key task in the field I'm trying to go into. So even though my primary project was with the archives, they made sure I had every opportunity to get relevant experience.
And I think this is absolutely what the a good internship will offer you, no matter what, is like with mine at NILA, there have been at least two events that I've attended and helped out with their youth services conference and their developing leaders conference. Both of these have professionals in the field who are giving presentations for continuing education credit for the ones who were enrolled with that. Um, that you can go to. They're for by librarians for librarians on how to better do your collection management, how to better using their own case studies of their library to help others to develop, doing reading programs, doing story times, that kind of thing. Any kind of professional development conference presentation you can think of under the sun, the people that I work with want me to be able to say that I went to some of these conferences and attended these presentations the same as any other information professional. And I think that that's really, really useful if you can find an internship that even if they are not necessarily directly what you want to do end goal wise, they want to give you the opportunity to know as much as possible and to be as invested in it, like immersed in it as possible, rather.
Um, Yeah. It's very funny that we went off and all that because that
I
is
know.
relevant to questions
Yeah.
that we have later on. I will say I guess separate from how Misha and I found our internships. I mean, the cold calls to make networking connections are excellent ideas, but especially when we put in the context of needing to pay the bills and really hoping for a paid internship, uh, governmental positions are honestly a really good option. UAlbany, in particular, has a lot of connections with the New York State government, and so there are constantly student assistantships uh, being established in the local government.
Mhm.
These tend to lean more towards the IMT tracks, things like that, less towards libraries or archives. But if you are in those tracks, these are excellent options. And I know we have a lot of remote students. So let's say you can't drive up to Albany, look at your local government, look at your county, your town. They probably have something they can do to help you. And even if it can't necessarily be a paid internship, governments have good jobs. You get
Good
registered as like a
benefits.
government secretary.
Mhm.
That's a good job. And if you have connections in there from your internship, you know.
Something that I want to mention too that I'm not necessarily sure if it answers this question, but I guess it does. It's important that people know. If you can find email listservs and email listservs that
Yes.
have that are relevant to your position. So for example, one of them that is for libraries in New York State is Nyline. I think it's pretty much as easy as you just put your email in when you go to the so NYLINE Nyline. If you search that, it'll pull up the New York State Library website. Um, Oliver's typing it in.
I put my computer all the way over here. Is what is it, myline.com or
It's longer.
okay.
I know, I'm sorry. Yes, it's the
Yeah, there we go. Okay,
yes. If you
that is in the chat
yes,
now.
if you search for this and you find the one that's from the New York State Library, it's a .gov website. Um, you send an email message, you subscribe to it. This is something that the entirety of New York State librarians, library systems in the entire state will send things out to you saying, we have a position opening at Troy Public Library or something like that. We have a position opening at Gilderland Public Library or something like that. If you are looking for a position that is a job there, and then you can say, well, I'm working at this library. Here is the internship. This is something that I get emails from this every single day because I'm enrolled in it for my work at NYLA. But I really want people to know about this because I think one of the things that this is like one of the biggest takeaways that I can think of is you might not know about internship opportunities or even work opportunities after you graduate unless you are enrolled in these kind of esoterically sent out email lists or job boards, and I really wish more people knew about them. So I think this is absolutely relevant to where you can find it. And if you can find one, I'm sure that there's one for archives. I'm sure there's one for the IMT tracks.
Can I add on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
SUNY Law is also another great resource. That's the SUNY Librarians Association.
Yes.
They also have a listserv. SUNY Law is also free to join for students.
Mhm.
But they have a lot of great resources. Again, their listserv. They have they also do an annual conference.
Yes,
and
that was earlier this year, right?
Yeah, that was over in
Oh,
SUNY Delhi.
Delhi, yeah.
And that was like my first like library conference. I had a really great time there, and made a lot of great connections with people.
Mhm.
I've business cards from people that said if you are looking for an internship in this area, or there's people from all over the state. But that's SUNY Law is another great resource, especially for like academic libraries.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes.
For people who are in person, particularly for resources as they get mentioned, I am putting them down so that I can email to everyone later.
Yes.
Um,
This is one of the reasons though I want to point out why Scala and just being involved in even just your student chapter of the professional organization can be so important because working in a given field is only half of the thing. It's networking is really important because you do a good internship at one place and then you get an opportunity from that place maybe after you graduate to work there, or you get an opportunity from another place that saw your work at that library or at that facility of some kind. They're like, you did really good work. Would you like to come work for us? So I don't know. I'm just saying it's a good way. It's a good way to start for yourself.
So the next question I have, we have kind of gone over this a little bit, but maybe we have more to add. What helped you in your internship search?
Yeah. I mean, I know I did kind of answer it a little bit with the lists. I think really, yeah, though, that kind of thing is getting enrolled in as many of those kinds of things as possible, of subscribing to listservs for emails that send out stuff for opportunities, checking the CEHC like intern updates. That was something I was doing all the time. All of those things. And honestly, one of the other things I think that's really important too, reach out to your advisor if you're really, really lost and you're feeling very, very like maybe down on your luck about it. So Dr. Germain is my advisor. I remember when I was talking to her during my search, I was like, I'm having a lot of trouble finding an internship. And she was like, well, check these. She had a number of things. She was like, check what's being sent out from CEHC. And she was like, she was like, at the end of it, if you can't find something, we can always make an opportunity for you at the university library. So the thing about that was the university library internship that she was offering would not have been paid, which for me was kind of a deal breaker because I have to pay my bills. But if you're someone who, you're taking maybe you're working full time and you're taking part-time classes, and that kind of internship might you really just need the experience for it, or if you've never worked in that kind of field before and the experience is more important to you, it's absolutely something to ask your advisor because they can really help you get that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I actually have the same advisor, and like I mentioned, I'm looking into a particularly niche field. When I expressed to her that I was having these difficulties, I told her what opportunities I was already looking at, and she said to me, if you want to look at other options sooner, or if you want to like wait a little bit longer, reach out and here's some resources to look into. In the meantime, I have some connections, people I know at oh my God, what was it? I can't remember.
It's okay.
Uh it was like the Capital District Council, something like that. Because
Oh, the CDLC,
yes, because they're
Capital District Library Council.
yes, because hospital libraries are a thing not a lot of people know about, and they do have connections to hospital libraries. So um the gist of this particular part here
Yeah.
is that your advisors exist to help you.
Mm-hmm.
You should reach out to them. They have connections. They know people, they know resources.
Mm-hmm.
If you're struggling, they are a tool just as much as they are there to give you your AVN, even
Yes,
more
yeah.
so.
Please reach out to them because they really, especially if you're an online student and you are feeling kind of, I can imagine it can be really isolating. I'm in person in Albany as much as I possibly can be, so it's like it's a little less lonely. It's a little less, the cohort is a little bit more cohesive. But if you are someone that's online and you, especially if you're working full time and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I feel really isolated from this profession, reach out to your advisor. They can connect you to SCALA. They can connect you to all of these other things that are specific to the field that you want to go into. SUNY Law, like Melody said, there's a lot of stuff that exists to help you.
Um, Something else that is really helpful. So if you are in a position where you really just need the experience and you have the ability to accept an unpaid internship, which it would be wonderful if they were all paid, but that just it doesn't always happen. If you are in a financial position where you can accept an unpaid internship, um, you'd be surprised what cold calling gets you.
Yes.
It might not get you an internship right away. Like in my particular case, I did a few different cold calls, and in these, I didn't explicitly ask for an internship, but I said, I need an internship eventually. What's some advice? How can I get this? And one piece of advice that was given to me was to have a prepared list of things you already know how to do, things that you can do without strict supervision, because especially if you're doing something like a cold call where they don't have an internship already prepared, they don't want to have to hover over your shoulder to make sure you're doing it right. If you come prepared saying, I'm capable, I know how to do X, Y, Z, they're a lot more inclined to just make something up and take you on in that capacity.
I concur about that. The one of the other positions that I interviewed for was one of the things about it was acquisitions. And so for me, one of the things I wrote on my resume and what I submitted to them was that I was familiar with Iliad and another interlibrary loan program that was about purchasing books. And they were like, oh, you know how to use those programs. That's fantastic. Because like they were, when they were doing the interview and introducing me to everyone in the building, they were like, Misha knows how to use these programs. If you can say specific things, like specific technology that you know how to use, specific skills that you know how to do very well, make sure you put that on your resume, make sure you put it on whatever you have. Or like Oliver said, when you're doing the cold call, mention that kind of thing, mention those skill sets, because whatever you can bring to the table that is specifically what they don't need to train you on can be really, really helpful in just finding it, especially if especially in the case of an unpaid internship, but even in a paid one, that saves them all of that time and effort and money to train you, and then you don't have to spend that time being trained and you can just get started on your work.
Yeah. And honestly, something else that really helps for sort of, I guess, proving that you know what you're doing are actually your projects in your classes. My internship involved a lot of work with LibGuides, and they were expecting to take on an intern. Actually, very quickly, I'm going to backtrack because I keep talking about the cold calling and saying I didn't ask for an internship, and that's not how I got it. To be clear, when I was cold calling them for the informational interview, they told me later on when I was interviewing for the internship that they had wanted really badly to tell me about this opportunity, but they were still waiting for their formal approval. Otherwise, they would have, at that moment, told me to apply. So that's a particular case that,
Yeah.
to be clear about that distinction so that it doesn't sound like I'm just making stuff up. Um,
Sometimes it really is like a timing thing.
yeah.
And it's and I hate to say that like it's like a thing that's like up in the air, but like as soon as you anticipate yourself being able to have the 18 credits that you need to get your internship, my recommendation is just start using everything at your disposal to look for one, because you never know when something like some of the opportunities that I applied for, they were temporary positions because someone had maternity leave or because someone had retired or something like that. So you really can't know these things until they happen, and you want to be prepared in some capacity on your end as much as possible.
Also, to my understanding, most, if not all, of the advisors are willing to make an exception for if you don't yet have 18 credits,
Mm.
if you are offered like a really exceptional opportunity that you couldn't really get again if you wait.
Yeah, they don't want to stifle that.
They're honestly, the advisors, like just honestly, the professors in this program have been incredible. They've like very clearly dedicated to student success. That's I cannot say I've had the same experience in undergrad, so that's honestly really great. Um, to my previous point about class assignments helping you, so the primary project I would be working with LibGuides. They were fully expecting to have to train someone from scratch on how to use them. In what is it,
605.
605, the final assignment is creating. You are allowed to use WordPress as an alternative, but either WordPress or a LibGuide about a specific
Or you can
subject.
code your own, which is what I did, but don't do that.
Yeah, don't be Misha.
Don't do that. Just use LibGuide. It's good. It's a better way to do it. It'll save
Yeah,
your server.
and WordPress is actually fairly similar to LibGuide in a lot of ways. But so the interview was over Zoom, so I screen shared and I showed them the LibGuide that I was already working on. I explained why I was putting certain elements in certain formats. And they were very excited because that meant that they didn't have to train me on that and that I could actually provide valuable input to the formatting if something didn't quite work out the way that they wanted it to.
Similarly to 605, which at least in the version of it that I took, our professor urged us to put that on our resume as a skill that we have and link to it. With 608, which is research methods, the kind of final research paper that you finish or the research proposal that you finish for that class, if you especially are in the IMT track or research of any kind is going to be like one of your end goals, you can say, look, I know how to do qualitative research and how to do quantitative research. Here is my proposal. I know how to do data management methods. I know how to do all of those things. Again, really specific skills that you can point to and say, look, I did this in a course. Unlike with undergrad, where I think kind of like you might think, man, I had to write all these papers for undergrad and they're not really my best work. Some of the work, and hopefully a lot of the work that you do in your master's program, is something you can not only be proud of, but you can be like, look, this is something that shows that I know what I'm doing as a professional.
Yeah, and I think every fall there's the CEHC showcase, and then in the spring
Yes.
is the UAlbany showcase. If you present, absolutely put that on your resume. Like I did that.
Yes, please do.
Because I made an instruction course about health literacy. That's a valuable skill, especially in like librarianship, because there is a lot of instruction involved. I did in for 602, I did a research project evaluating the problems with data linkage in patient record systems, which that showed that I have a pretty varied skill set. If you have the room on your resume for like accomplishments, things like that, that's honestly excellent to put on there. Like I was surprised at how much I actually got out of it. Because let's be honest, if we look at the descriptions of a program like directly from a college's website or testimonials from graduates, you kind of think they're inflating things. You might assume that they're exaggerating. But I found that things are like the assignments we're doing, the connections we're making, the networking opportunities are genuinely valuable.
Yes, at the
And
grad level, especially, like it's more about a peer kind of thing.
I feel a lot more secure about going into debt for this than I did for undergrad. Um,
I yeah, similar to that, the research I did showcase last semester for 608. The research proposal that I put together for that um ended up being something that I used to apply for uh an outside advocacy position in Interact, which is an intersex advocacy organization. The research proposal that I had done, which was on intersex inclusion in libraries, I reformatted that into a grant searching opportunity. Very long-winded, long story short. Now I'm going to be working on that and presenting that at the NILA conference this year, which is like I said, thousand people are going to be attending, and it's a big. That's the state library association for the ALA, the New York chapter of it. So for me, there's a really direct thorough line of the work that I did in this class going to my internship and also going to my own professional development. And like I said, the reason I mentioned 608 too, for people in the IMT track or people who research is their focus, all of these things can be applicable to you. It's just we're just using our examples in the library world.
Honestly, even if research isn't necessarily your focus, performing research gives you a chance to show your expertise in a particular subject. We are both library students, so that is kind of where our expertise lies, but special libraries are, I think, an under-examined opportunity. So for something like one of my classmates, she has a degree in linguistics. So she's exploring in her research, she's exploring qualities, both pros and cons of databases for linguistics. Like if she wanted, I don't know if a linguistics library is something that's like a quote unquote thing, but that shows that she has expertise in the subject of linguistics in how things like indexing apply to the subject. The research itself, like she might not be going to a research focus, but that shows her expertise.
I'll say this too. You bringing that up was actually reminding me of something. I'm in 649 right now, which is information literacy.
Yeah, information literacy instruction.
Information literacy instruction, yes. So that's a class that is primarily for students who want to go into either school libraries or academic libraries. And the last assignment or that I did for that was a presentation on how I would give like a instructional lesson to a given class with my specialty. My undergraduate was in medieval studies at SUNY Binghamton, which is very niche kind of thing. But one of the great parts about that was for that assignment and for that lesson plan that I developed, I was like, I'm going to look at the resources that I use from medieval studies. And I used two databases from that to teach a hypothetical lesson to an undergrad class. So for me, and I think also for like the student that you mentioned, Oliver, this master's program and overall, I think just the information science world, whatever you have that is unique to you in terms of your undergrad experience or your prior professional experience, you shouldn't have to give that up in order to do well. If anything, it should help you do better and do stuff uniquely to yourself.
Yeah. To the point specifically of 649, even if you're not necessarily going into a public library or a university library, it's incredibly valuable because I do think instruction techniques are so useful. You're so unlikely to be working in a library role where you never have to instruct someone. If you're a cataloging librarian, there's a good chance you have to explain to a colleague exactly what you're doing. And understanding how instruction works, even if you're not designing a formal course, can be so useful. In any job, even an internship, making your like giving yourself more skills, you want to make yourself indispensable
Yeah.
to the place you are. And so having those instruction skills, you could maybe train people. Like I wound up explaining a little bit of how the LibGuides work. In 649, my project was a course on actually it was on health literacy. So that's not strictly speaking information literacy, but it was in a sense. And one of the librarians who was interviewing me for the internship, he actually specifically asked me a question about that project and about how I would approach those issues because in health sciences libraries, that is actually something that a topic they have to broach with the medical students because most people don't realize that this isn't strictly relevant, it's just ridiculous. In the US, the average health literacy, I think it's about eighth grade level, which is shocking. And it is when you are becoming an MD that it is your responsibility to do everything you can to make sure that your patients understand their health needs.
And when you're a librarian, your job too is to help get the information, the relevant information to both the professionals and to the public of some kind, if whoever your patronage is in some capacity, like it's important.
That's why I bring that up because
Yeah.
I like in my particular case, you have to make sure that the med students like understand that concept and how to do those things. But it also can apply to like individual research consultations, which is like a lot of what I wound up observing as well. We've kind of veered into a bit of preaching isn't the right word, but just boasting about the program. This is honestly, it's like it is great. I would like to veer back into the internship experience.
Yes.
It's
fine.
Yeah. No, so I like it's all really good information, which is why we keep going
We're
into
throwing
this.
all at you guys, but we're doing that because we want to tell you as much as possible that we did not know ourselves when we first started.
Yeah, and I mean that is also part of why we're recording this to post later because then you can rewind and write it down. So I guess I think it would be interesting to talk about the specific responsibilities and tasks we dealt with in our internships.
Emails. Okay, let me rephrase. So again, my position at the New York Library Association is not strictly what you would expect from a job that is for librarians in training of some kind. We're not a library, we're the Library Association. So what I deal with most of the time is helping people. I get a lot of emails from people also emails that are forwarded to me from my supervisor. I have multiple supervisors who they're usually too busy to take care of those things, or they're things that I'm able to do. A lot of things are we have a large membership base of many different kinds of library professionals and also groups like retirees, trustees, and friends of libraries. A lot of them have questions about their registration, whether it's for our conference or if they're renewing their membership. It's keeping them up to date about that information and also their billing information. I'll be completely honest, a lot of what I do is probably more comparable to like a secretary. But the thing is too, is that the knowledge that I have from this program and also my previous work in a library and just library world in general is indispensable because a lot of keeping up with the networking that they do is very, very library specific, library and archive specific, because archivists are also there's many archivists and special collections people who are involved in New York Library Association. Um, for example, with the advocacy stuff, which is another avenue that we take care of, it's really important that me and the others be familiar with who your representatives are in the local area at the state level and even at the federal level, what their stances are on specific bills that are being in circulation right now in legislation about things affecting libraries, whether that be something about education, something about right now the Freedom to Read Act is being passed around, all that sort of thing. About there's a lot of things going on right now for ebooks and digital book access. So that sort of thing is in circulation. That's what we're kind of taking care of right now, is to get our legislators to realize that we are a group that is interested in keeping these things in circulation and hopefully getting them passed at the New York State level. So those are the main two things that I deal with, is like keeping aware of those things and circulating that stuff out to our our patronage, or our patronage in this case being librarians themselves. So it's still important to the library world, I would say.
Um, so in my particular case, I mentioned that my main project was with the archives. So the New York Medical College is really interesting because it has a really long history. There's I'm going to call it a concept because it shouldn't be in practice anymore, called homeopathy. It was better than you got spirits in you, let's put leeches, but not by much.
Yeah.
Um, and so, especially in like the 1800s, homeopathy was a very extensive medical practice. At this point, there are no homeopathic medical colleges anymore. Good. It has been widely disproven. Anyway, um, most of the medical schools that were formerly homeopathic medical schools have either been dissolved or were absorbed into larger institutions to the point where they were largely dissolved. The New York Medical College is the only remaining college that was at one point like a homeopathic medical college.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's honestly it's really no, it's really interesting. Like there were definitely some mergers and stuff, but they have remained their own entity. The point being they have an extensive history going back to I think the late 1700s. As such, there is an archives, and there are a lot of notable historical figures associated with the college. So my big project was to update these LibGuides that were about the historical figures. The LibGuides had existed for years, but most of them hadn't been updated since 2014 was the most recent updates to them. Because they were kind of thrown together haphazardly by the librarians at the time, because that was not their priority, which is understandable. Um, so my big project was to perform archival research so that I could update these guides to be more factual and engaging and useful, because these were secondary sources that were actually being used by tertiary sources like Wikipedia. Like you could literally go to Wikipedia and they would cite this page that didn't necessarily have the most accurate information.
Mm.
So my job was to do research so that I could create content to update these pages. That definitely it gave me a lot of good skills in research about in both digital archival and physical archival research, which I do think is, even though I am going into a more, I guess, modernized library setting, that is still incredibly useful because it gives me digital search tools. It also gives me like research skills and formatting things in a like creating content that is engaging and useful to the audience. It was honestly a very interesting project. I found some really interesting things that like I'll talk about it at another point, but like I compiled a list of quotes from some of the documents because it was just insane. Um, that was my main project. I also, because I was working with the user experience librarians, and I think I did mention over the summer, every medical student is performing systematic reviews. So there were endless research consultations. So that I would be sitting in on these consultations every now and then. I would like kind of pipe in and say, "Hey, have you tried this resource? How has this key term worked out for you?" The librarians, they like sat and they explained to me, I'm doing this. I'm trying to make this data set more accessible to the medical students. They were absolutely happy to have me in on absolutely everything. I sat in on committee meetings. So I was able to really engage in a lot of different things. They have, I think it's a quarterly social event, professional social event. And so they arranged that for a day that I was going to be there in person. And I presented a summary of all the work I'd been doing uh, as sort of like a capstone presentation thing. And I got a chance to speak to the librarians there, hear about like their opinions on their jobs now, how the field used to be, where they see things going. That's just the side thing. That wasn't necessarily a responsibility. That was just an opportunity I was given. So my responsibilities largely dealt with things that don't sound like they're directly related to being a health sciences librarian in a modern environment, but are actually very easily extrapolated to those skills.
I was gonna say, like, based on what you were talking about too, not just the responsibilities, but also like the skills that you're gaining through your internship. I had previously, when I was at Binghamton University, I worked for 2 years in their interlibrary loan department, in the back of their library, in the basement, pulling books from the shelf, doing that whole process, getting them to people, almost never communicating with others. It was not front facing at all, which is really rare for a lot of like work study kind of positions when you're an undergrad in a library. Um, for this position at NILA, for me, I feel very much like the big skill I'm getting is the people skills, is getting to know people, to know how to communicate with them. Um, which of course, any kind of service sector job, you can get that kind of skill as well. But for me, it's the added thing of the people that I'm dealing with are not just the general public. Social security number needed.
If you are not getting paid, I don't believe it is. It really depends on the security clearance of where you're going. Because, for example, I was working with a college, so I did need to get vetted and have a background check. So in my case, I think I did have to give it for those purposes. It really depends on the specific institution and if you're being paid.
Yeah, I had to provide my social security number because of for payroll on my internship. Um, in the application process, there was no part of that having to include my social security number or my address or anything like that. But because mine was paid, I did have to disclose that information.
Just because we do in-person people, the question was, are
Yes.
things like social security numbers required to apply for internships? Um,
It probably will depend on whoever wherever you apply, what the specifics are and whether or not they're paid.
yeah, mostly security and things
Of
like
course.
that. Um, I would like to open up to questions.
Yes,
Yeah, all right. So I think now is a good opportunity if anyone has questions, anything.
we've talked at you guys. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I know you love our voices, but
How, like, what was the, like, I know, Misha, you're like still doing yours. What was like weekly commitment? Was it like 10 hours a week or something like that?
um
Yeah, so the question is, what is the weekly commitment or what was the weekly commitment for your internship? Like, how many hours a week?
it's so per course requirements or program requirements, it's supposed to total to I think
150?
150 hours.
150 for the three credit internship for
Yeah.
678.
So how that specifically is split up, you can actually kind of arrange with your with the facility conducting your internship. Some places do have a set amount established. Others are kind of like my particular case, they said, do you want to do this in 2 months or like 3 months? And dividing the number and like establishing the number of hours based on that.
Yeah,
Um,
like my internship started last semester, so if I had been able to say that if I had wanted to, I could have said over the summer I was doing it and probably gotten it done. But I kind of wanted to have just two classes in the internship this semester because I knew this was going to be a busier time because of our conference. My internship will last until I graduate. And so for me, I do 20 hours a week as if it's just like a part-time job. But for me, it'll end up fitting into the 150-hour total that I need for the 3 credits.
Um, to sum up, the minimum requirement for the 3 credit course totals 150 hours. The specific weekly requirements will vary based on your internship, but the length of a semester, it typically comes out to somewhere between 12 to 15 hours, not like exact,
Mhm.
but that's if they give you the flexibility to determine that, that's kind of the average you're looking at.
And also, this might just be in my case with Dr. Germain, and how she collects the journals where she checks in on your progress, but that might be, for me, it's going to be collected every 10 hours. So for me, it's easier to divide that like twice a week. I have to write the journal entries for what I did. But for you, your advisor or professor might do something slightly different. It might be every 20 hours, or it might be every 15 hours or something like that.
Don't be me. Look at the bright space. The bright space will have the information.
The internship has a bright space, just like it's a class. There are things you have to do for it. Talk to your advisor about it as well, please. I like,
Yeah.
This I will urge you that, yeah, you really can't not do that. You have to do that.
There usually
And
is
also to you guys, please.
there usually isn't much required of the facility that's giving the internship in terms of paperwork. Like
Mhm.
there's the forms to start and then forms at the end sort of summarizing here's what they did, here's how we
there's-
feel. But I'm so sorry, just let me finish my little spiel. That I do think is important to note because if you're cold calling or if you're with a facility that they haven't really had an intern in a long time and they don't know what they're getting into, that is important to mention to them because they love to not have more work.
Mhm. No, you said it.
Oh, okay.
You said it.
All right. Anyone else have questions?
Did that answer your question, Lily?
Oh, sorry.
Good.
Yes.
Yes, you mentioned before something about governmental positions maybe being a good
Yeah.
place to look at, for internships.
Yeah.
What sort of governmental positions would qualify?
So it really depends on your track. I know, Brian, you're in the libraries with us. So I actually did talk to Dr. Germain about this, and she said that if I could get a student internship working with a records department, that would qualify.
Okay.
So for example, I was looking at a student assistantship with the New York State Department of Health, and I was really hoping that I could get that and work particularly with their records because yes, they deal with a lot of health records. They also deal with public health data, birth, death, all those things. And so that is fairly applicable because there is a good amount of indexing, cataloging, etc. To that point, cataloging is an incredibly useful skill. I know that we might have some archive students watching this. Especially for archive students, cataloging is a great skill. Even if you're not necessarily getting an internship with an archives, if you get an internship with like a library, a historical library doing cataloging, that will take you so far.
I was trying to pull something up because one of our classmates had sent something in, had sent me something a while ago about like positions, but I can't find it now. But I was going to say like about what you were saying. The cataloging thing is something that that New York State is always looking for. They're always looking for people who are familiar with cataloging. I'm not entirely sure if whether they are looking for people who already have their MSIS or if they're in the process of doing so. I know that especially towards the end of your MSIS program. Sorry, I know I'm like looking at the screen and also looking at you. Towards the end of the MSIS program, when you are somewhere around like 6 months to a year out from getting it, some places, and it might very well be with the government positions for cataloging, they sometimes say like that you can apply to them if you have the MSIS or if you are 6 months out from getting your MSIS, like you're in the process and you have confirmation of your graduation date or something like that, then you can start applying to these positions and hopefully get them.
Yeah. This is also, I guess, dependent on what level of government you're looking at.
Right.
Because the reason I specifically mentioned this is that through Handshake, which is the job board that UAlbany uses, there are constantly student assistantships with various state departments being offered there, and they are paid. So those are if you can manage to make it work for your track, and you know need money, which is fair. Um, that's good options to look into. I don't know what they like if they have internships available, but there are also a number of state historical organizations. Like for example, the New York State Museum is technically a governmental organization. It is, I think,
Yeah.
state funded. Yeah.
And then I know last year the Library of Congress was also looking for people to work. I think that was a summer internship. Yeah, I applied for that one, I think too. That was a summer internship position. I'm not sure if that one, I don't think that one requires you to relocate. I think it was remote, but that would be,
Option and an in-person option.
gotcha. Yeah, that would be federal, I believe, with the
Yeah.
Library of Congress.
You
Yeah,
can also
I should keep that
Yes.
in mind for down the
They,
road.
yes, I certainly think that one is at least annual. So it
Mhm.
hopefully by,
And they had like a ton of different options.
yes.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of concentrating on Albany, but actually that reminds me that would be something that we
I
could
mean,
look for
yeah.
outside of
you
Albany.
also can go even smaller, city governments, town
Yes.
governments,
Mhm.
especially
Albany
Yeah.
County, yeah.
especially because if they don't necessarily have a predetermined I guess position for an internship, the smaller you go in the government, the more flexibility they will give you, like with creating something. Like a small a historical like a historical preservation department of like a smaller town, they probably don't have much oversight. I know because I have had like some involvement in like local politics for my hometown. And so like that kind of gives you more flexibility, but it also puts on your resume that you've worked with governmental organizations, which will help you
Mhm.
later on.
And this applies if you are in New York State or in another state. Look into all of these things. We're just talking about it because we're all in person in Albany, which is, the state capital. So it's like a lot of government
Yeah.
stuff is here, but
But that's also why I mention
Yeah.
like town governments.
Mhm.
For example, my where I'm like I'm here, I'm living on campus during the semester, but where I live full time, there are a lot of like historical buildings with actually a number of different historical societies. For example, we've got an excellent library system, super nice libraries. Some of them are historical buildings. Um, Literally, I asked one of the librarians at my local library like about her experience in an MLIS program, and she said, "Listen, if you need when you need an internship, like when you're starting, we can take you as an intern. We don't have a position, but we'll figure something out."
Honestly, that's something else that
Yeah.
now that you're bringing this up. When I was at Binghamton, and I was working at their libraries, and I was like, I'm going into the MSIS. They were like, I know that you want to relocate to Albany to do it in person, but if you end up staying here in Binghamton, we can get you something here, whether that like for whatever, like because we having those connections and using the connections that you already made. If you have familiarity with your local library or you have worked in a library at a lower level, keep those connections.
I could add on to that.
Yeah.
And doing interviews as well, like
Mhm.
even if you don't get the position, you're still making
They know you.
connections.
Yeah.
Actually, recently I am like maybe a year ago, I interviewed for an internship at the New York State Library. I didn't end up getting the position, but they said they were like they'll keep me in mind for like future things. And then a couple months ago, they emailed me and was like, "Hey, we have another internship opening that we think you would be a really good fit for. So we're sending along the information if you're interested."
Mhm.
I didn't end up going for that, but it was another opportunity.
You're in circulation. They know who you
Yeah.
are. And I think that
Yeah.
that's really,
They thought of me for it and sent me the information, which was
yeah.
really cool of them, which I didn't end up like taking it, but it was still really like, I made a connection there.
To bring it back to your question, Brian, there are a million different routes you can take to technically get established in an internship with like a governmental organization.
Mhm. Okay.
Yes.
Any other thoughts, questions?
So I just wanted to say thank you for your leadership in putting this together and also for recording it because I think the insights that you shared were truly invaluable and I think it's really gonna be helpful to students. It helps to hear from peers about your real lived experiences. Because it's not as easy as it looks, but also this community is probably the most supportive of their future. Future information science professionals, librarians, archivists, cultural education experts in the world. So it's really very good to be in a community like this. One thing I was gonna talk about that I think that you said, I'm thinking about new students as they just begin the program.
Yeah.
And I think this would benefit them in terms of the fact that, and the examples that you started to, Melody, and Brian added on to, this idea of networking early on, to try to establish yourself as a member of the community is so helpful, as you get started, because then there's opportunities that could come about that you don't even ever imagine, right? And they might come to you instead of having to do that arduous task of, oh, I need an internship and I need to make it happen.
I want to say too that thank you, and to add on to what you're saying, because I work pretty much all day when I work is just doing networking kind of stuff. This doesn't just stop with you as the intern. I have my primary supervisor is someone who's presented at ALA and has been in communication with ALA to do more presentations. The same way that you, as just the intern or as just the student, the MSIS student, are going to be in communication with your professional organizations or with potential places for job opportunities. It never ends. Professional development never really ends. You always are striving to do better for yourself and for what you want to bring to the table for the field. I know, like I said, I know that mainly what I can help and say is applicable to libraries. It's a really small world. Everyone knows everybody. And that's a good thing. I'm not saying that to be like everyone knows everybody. I really mean it like everyone knows everybody. Everybody wants to be excellent to one another. So I imagine that it can't be too different in the world of archives or in the IMT world. People want to help each other and to do well and to keep professionally developing.
Yeah, and to that point, that's why things like Scala are so helpful. I know
Yes.
that I know that personally, I'm hoping to graduate at the end of next semester.
Me too.
I know that personally, as I continue to be established in my career, I am going to stay connected with Scala and try to update them on things that I'm noticing. Maybe once I can get established as a librarian, speak.
They want students involved. Librarians want the people that are trying to get into the profession to be involved. And I think the thing mainly is sometimes there's a missing communication between those resources and being able to find them for yourself, but they are out there. The intention is there. And that's why stuff like this kind of presentation is really important so that we can show you what we've found is the connecting kind of thing.
I think we're getting close to winding down.
Yes.
I would actually like to bring in one more topic before we close. We talked a little bit about the financial aspect. I do think that's something that, no offense to Dr. Cofield or the other advisors, that they can't necessarily speak to in the current setting, because financial stresses are a real thing.
Absolutely.
And paid internships aren't always available. So before I turn it over to you, because I know you have experience with this, I would like to say if you're able to be in person in Albany, there are actually a number of on-campus resources. I know that we do have like free stores. I think we have a food pantry.
There's a food pantry on campus. There's the Purple Pantry.
And
here in the E-Tech building, which is the primary MSIS building, there is also upstairs in the lounge a fridge for grad students to get food if you need food.
I did not know that.
Yes. They told us this last year in orientation. They probably did this year. I didn't go to orientation this year. But I really want to stress and sorry.
I'm so
No,
sorry.
you go.
I wasn't. I'm
Yes,
so
you go.
sorry. I was.
No, please.
Res Life actually has a lot of opportunities for graduate students. They're often looking for GAs or GHA, I think. I don't remember. Housing assistance, basically. And through those programs, you get, depending on which position you take, they do have positions available for what is, I think, close to full-time work, where you get your housing compensated and your tuition. They do have closer to part-time positions, at which point you get, well, you get your housing compensated and a stipend. No matter what position you're getting, you do actually get a small stipend. So if you are in a position where you are concerned about finances, positions like that, you will get housing, you will get a little bit of money. And I have worked as an RA before. You're just there's a good amount of time you're just sitting at a desk, so you can do your homework during that time. It's not always ideal for people, but especially if you do better with in-person classes and you that is a financial consideration for you, they're good options. So
Hey, no, you're completely fine. Thank you for sharing that stuff because I've never been an RA, so I don't have that experience.
it's a mixed bag.
What some of the other things I wanted to mention, if you move to the Albany area or to the Capital District in general, and you are looking for food banks, look up your zip code that you live in because the food banks that you can go to might be dependent on that, and that way you can maximize the amount of times that you're able to go and provide for yourself or your dependents if you have any. Something else I want to mention is if you are in need of mental health resources, I can highly recommend that on campus, the CAPS program, which is like the mental health services at UAlbany, has a referral program where you send in some information and say, you know, I'm not looking for, it's something like 10 visits that they can do here with the therapists and psychologists that they have on campus. If you speak to them about referrals, like let's say you have something more specific that you want help with, or if you are in need of a new psychiatrist of some kind, please reach out to them about referrals, give them some information about what you specifically might be needing or needing to look for. They can help you if you are not, I'm saying that they can help you if you live in New York State, but not necessarily in the Albany area. I know some of the places they recommended to me were people in downstate or in Long Island. I'm living up here, but that could be very relevant to someone who's from down there.
I'm sorry if you are.
You're completely fine.
No, that was a dig at Long Island. Sorry.
No.
I'm from that. I was raised there. I'm allowed to say it. I hate Long Island. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay. My point is that I was able to get in contact with good mental health professionals through the referral program at UAlbany, and I really, really recommend it to people. I never want you to think that you have to struggle through that kind of thing alone, and I never want you to think that you cannot reach out to these resources to help because they are here. Please trust me on this. They are here. They want to help you, and they want to help you with your specific stuff so that you can do the best that you deserve to be able to do.
Yep. Another really important resource is so there's a service called Timely Care, which offers telehealth services for common medical illnesses, like common medical issues and reproductive health. They have health coaching for like nutrition, sleep. They have peer connections. They have mental health counseling, and it is freely available to, and I do mean free, like no
Yes.
cost to all students. UAlbany has sent out some emails about it. It's a good resource.
Yeah, the referral that I mentioned too is freely provided to students. The food bank on campus is freely provided to students, I believe. Don't quote me on this. I believe it's once a month you can go in and take what you need from the pantry. I know that I want to say it's one of the queer centers on campus has like a closet for getting professional clothing if you need.
It's not associated with one of the
Okay.
Career centers, but it is its own thing. It's Purple Threads. It's
Purple Threads.
right next to the Purple
Yes.
Threads. They do like once a semester if you need like professional clothing for an interview or something, they have a whole place you can just go and just take clothes.
Which could be very helpful if you need this for
It's specifically for professional clothes, so if that's what you're looking for, it'll be good, but if not, like if you just need like regular clothes, usually on campus, a lot of places do clothing swaps. There's the sustainability office, they do free stores as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yes, thank you. And there's all of these options, so
And if you are needing an actual income of funds, not just free services, tutoring is actually a really great option because you are getting skills in this program that you can apply to tutoring.
Absolutely.
You have to write a bunch of research papers, which means you know how to do it. You can help high school students write a decent research
Yep.
paper, and you can show them exactly how AI will screw them over.
That's true.
For that purpose, I know we do actually have, I think we do have an AI.
We have an AI,
track.
we have an AI track.
There is a significant difference between looking
I
at
don't know a whole
the
lot about that.
applications of AI for, I guess, data services
Yes.
and using AI to write your paper.
Yes.
There's a big difference.
Very different, yes.
Yeah, so tutoring is, I do think that's always a good option. There are a ton of work study positions associated if you're, again, in person. If you are remote, it then, becomes a little different, including, what your schedule, what's available to you. But the school actually does have a lot of resources available for remote students, which is very cool. So I strongly suggest looking for that. We do have a career center, which I don't really think they know a lot as far as our graduate program and job searching for that, but they can definitely help with like interview
Yes.
prep, and especially for
They
people
do
who
resume critiques as well.
I gotta be honest, I'm so weary of them. I have like a family friend who she currently works in HR and has for many years. I've shown her like resumes that like some college centers have made for me, and she's had a lot to say. I don't know about UAlbany specifically, but that's just me personally being weary.
I've gone there once for a resume critique. That some of their advice was pretty good, but it was like another student. They have students that they work with.
It's another set of
Oh,
eyes. looking
That's
for
okay.
stuff.
No, that's actually much better than what I was working with. So yeah,
Yeah, I've been really impressed with them actually. They've given me strategies to use, and also I just saw them transform a student's resume, where it was like chronologically based, and instead they were able to pull out highlights of how that was applicable to this job. So they do have good resources, but I mean, I would agree that, you need a rounded approach to getting,
Yes.
resources from many places.
I am realizing more and more that my undergraduate experience had a lot of issues that are not common in other colleges.
It's okay.
I have been really, really happy with the services they've provided to me, so.
Yes, just if you had a poor experience of some kind in your undergraduate career, consider giving UAlbany a chance as well to
Yeah.
see if there's something else, because there had been some things at my undergraduate that did not go very well, and then I came to UAlbany, I was like, oh, this is very different, and it was very refreshing.
I mean, with anything, you should never just trust it blindly. You go for the support and you seek additional support
That's why you listen to us.
elsewhere. You want as many people and systems and I guess resources in your corner as possible. And there is so much that the school has to offer. We're really hoping that this event and recording will have some benefits to people. Yeah, that's in the end, that's it.
Yes.
We want people to succeed. There's a lot available. I think we're close to.
Yeah. You're all gonna do great.
Yeah.
I promise.
So, we do, just before we close out, so we are the student chapter, we are UAlbany's student chapter of the American Library Association. My name is Oliver Vestal. I am the president of SCALA.
I'm Misha Bader. I'm the secretary of SCALA.
I'm Melanie Palmer, the communications officer for SCALA.
I'm Brian Herman, Vice President of SCALA.
I love how the owl didn't focus on you for
Now
that.
it is.
Oh.
Now it is.
Yeah, now it's focusing on you, but we are currently using a Gmail system because
We're in the process of getting our
Yeah.
email verified by
the
you.
organization, like UAlbany SCALA particularly, has been around since I think 1988. But apparently once I guess when they started registering things digitally, they never registered the organization. So we're in the process of getting that done so that we can have a UAlbany email. So in the meantime, we do have a Gmail.
You'll see us sending out stuff in our listserv. So please keep your email open. Check your emails. This is just good advice in general.
Yeah,
Check your emails.
when we do send stuff from our Gmail, I always include all of our UAlbany emails in the send to.
Mhm.
Any members that we're sending to are BCC'd because we do want to respect that maybe you don't want everyone to see your email.
Mhm.
And we try to make it as clear as possible that it's not a spam email, but we do have an email chain through that.
Mhm.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions, comments before we close it out?
Great work.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.
I'm gonna